November 27th, 2010. So 11 years ago today. The dates even line up perfectly. It was a Saturday. I didn't wake up that morning. I woke up Friday morning, went to work around 10 or 11. I worked at a movie theater. I got off work at about 2 a.m. Saturday morning. And then I didn't go back to sleep again until early Sunday morning, sometime after midnight. Saturday the 27th was the absolute worst day of my life. I'm not quite ready to share the details of that day, maybe one day, but it was very traumatic, so traumatic that 11 years later, I still have nightmares. My whole world flipped upside down. Nothing was ever the same. I wasn't the same. I was finally making good decisions. I was in the process of making a decision. I'd already made the decision. I was 3 weeks away from completion, a decision that I should have made about 6 months prior. And I was so happy. I was so excited because I felt like life was going to be better because life was not good. And then that happened and it was so unfair. It was like, I'm finally doing the right thing. I'm finally taking steps in the right direction. I'm finally doing right by me. And then this punch in the gut effectively became a reset button in my life. I was 23 years old, but I was a baby, but I was an adult. And I had to relearn how to adult. My nervous system was so shocked that I forgot how to function as a human being. And I had to relearn everything on top of relearning how to sleep through the night. It took me 2 years to sleep through the night, learning how to eat a proper meal, learning how to just be a whole person. I don't care what you've done. I don't care how awful of a thing you have done or who you are. I wouldn't wish that experience on my worst enemy. That one day turned into 7 months of awful. 11 years of memories. So every year around this time in the weeks leading up to this day, I like to kind of stalk my Facebook memories. So if you're on Facebook, every day they send you a memories. This is what happened on this day, however many years ago. And so I love to kind of track the different Facebook posts because that's where I was most active at the time. Instagram was like a baby thing. It wasn't really huge. And Twitter was, but Facebook is where I recorded a lot of my different thoughts. And so it's interesting to see the different Facebook posts leading up to this day and how happy I was about this life change I was making, and then this bomb that just dropped and shattered everything. It makes me sad because she's so happy, and I just want to go back in time and warn her, Savannah, on November 27th, you're going to die. Who you are, the person you know, she's going to die. She's going to die. You're not going to get to say goodbye. She's going to vanish in an instant, and you're never going to see her again. That day, November 27, 2010, is a line in the sand of my life. It marks the beginning and the end of me. In New Orleans, Hurricane Katrina is kind of a way people tell time. So you'll hear people say, pre-Katrina or after Katrina. That event is kind of like my Katrina in the sense that it's how I tell time, before and after. Because New Orleans before Katrina and New Orleans after Katrina, wow, so much has been held together. It's two completely different cities. Savannah before November 27, 2010, and Savannah now, two completely different people. That girl was miserable, depressed, angry, reckless, didn't give a damn about anybody, and I miss her so much. So Thanksgiving and Christmas for me is just one big bad memory. I can't escape it. There's no escaping it. Thursday, I was at work eating Thanksgiving dinner at work because I was 23 and I wanted to work on Thanksgiving because time and a half. And then 2 days later, everything just... So that's what I think about when I think of Thanksgiving. I just think about the time my life exploded. And then leading into Christmas, I was so numb. I had to be numb. I remember having a conversation with my mom. Actually, it was more of a screaming match because my mom was saying that I wasn't taking things seriously. This event was so serious and I wasn't taking it seriously, and I went off. I said, because I think she was expecting me to be a little more distraught and upset, and I wasn't. And I said, I'm numb. I have numbed myself, because if I allow myself to feel everything I am feeling right now, I won't survive. And I couldn't get her to understand, like, I am doing what I can to keep it together. It's like I am dying on the inside. I am terrified. I'm scared. I am so angry. I'm feeling 1,000 different things at once. And the only way I can keep myself contained is to just be numb. And then we get to Christmas and I'm still just like not feeling anything. And I'm just all up in my own head. And yeah, so it's just, I don't care much for Thanksgiving and Christmas because it's just one big bad memory of numbness and pain and regret and shame. And this is what kills me when I sit back and I think about it and I just remember. The tragic part isn't that it happened. The tragic part is that I wouldn't be here had it not. It was a big moment in my life. It was the worst moment of my life, the most traumatic moment of my life, but it was the absolute most pivotal moment of my life. Before everything happened, I'd stopped going to church. I think I hadn't been in church in over a year. Not because I'd had a falling out with God or because I was, angry at the institution of church. I was angry at Christians. I came to Christ in college, which was great. But the years that followed leading up to 2010 were just some of the worst in terms of friendship. And once I stepped away from some people, I just stepped away from church because I really didn't know where else to go for church. And so was hanging out with all the wrong people. I was hanging with people who I felt loved me for me and didn't love me for who they felt I should be. So yeah. It's just bad decision after bad decision after bad decision. After everything happened, because I was living in the town where I went to school and then I came back to Charlotte, I sought out a friend. I felt like less than a person, and I just wanted to talk to someone who I knew me and could see me. And she was someone I always trusted to really look at me and just see me. So I ended up connecting with her, and she invited me to her church, which at the time was a great idea because, other than being a Christian and going to church, I needed to be around people. I needed to get out of my own headspace and, just one day a week with other people singing Christian music and listening to a good word. It helped, definitely. Not for very long. Late 2012, early 2013, I stopped going to church again, not because I was angry at Christians, not because I was angry with God or because I was angry at the church, but because I was just filled with so much guilt and shame. I felt embarrassed being around so many happy people. At this point, the situation that had happened was completely over and done with, done. Completely done, but I was still feeling a lot of guilt and shame and just feeling like I'm not worthy enough to even show up to church. I would show up to church late on purpose just to avoid the say hey to your neighbor part, because I was afraid that if I would look at someone, they would see this label that was tattooed on my forehead. At least that's what it felt like. I was out of church for about a year after that, and then I got to a point where I said, I have to go back to church. I have to go back. Now, I'm lonely all the time, so being lonely doesn't bother me. But when you mix loneliness with guilt, shame, pain, and fear, it's debilitating. And I knew I needed to be around other people, I needed help getting out of this. I got to a point where I was just tired of the guilt and the shame. And so I remember praying, my exact prayer to God was, I want to go back to church, but I don't want to church hop. Just tell me where to go and I'll go. And God said, bet. And then pointed me in the direction of Elevation Church. That was January 2014, and I attended Elevation Church faithfully. I could probably count on one hand how many times I missed church from January 2014 until I moved, which was January 2020. God did a lot of work in me in the first 3 years, so 2014 to 2017, really pulling me out of my shell and putting me in situations where I would literally have to go up and make conversations with people, because I don't do that. Like, I don't even introduce myself to people, but for whatever reason, one day in the middle of 2017, early February 2017, this fool from nowhere shows up to church. It's his first day on staff at my campus. I was at the Ballantyne location, which is the main campus. And for whatever reason, I decided to introduce myself. Nothing prompted that. I didn't know this kid from Adam. I knew he was coming. I knew he was needed because we were lacking in our youth ministry. And here I am. That introduction changed my entire life. I'm literally here in New Orleans because of that individual. I'm in New Orleans because I met him. I met him because I stayed faithful at the place where God called me to go. And I only started going because I was so filled with guilt, shame, and anger that I needed to go somewhere. So I asked God for help. And I asked him for help because I had been out of church for a year, and I'd only gone back to church because I was so in my own head. I needed to be around other people to help pull me out. And I was so in my head because this event happened. Had this event not happened, I wouldn't have gone back to church. I didn't see a need at that time. There was no need for me to be around anyone else who liked Jesus. Had this thing not happened, I would not have moved here. And that is the annoying part for me, is knowing that all that pain led me to this kind of joy. I hate it. And I ask myself from time to time, is it worth it? Knowing what I know now, would I go through it all over again? Hell no. I would literally look God in the face and say, find another way to get me here because I can't go through that again. But it was through that valley I arrived at this mountaintop. The entire trajectory of my life changed because I survived. There's purpose in your pain. That's a cliche a lot of people say, but no, I'm living proof. There is purpose in the painful thing you're going through right now. It doesn't seem like it right now. I know it right now. It seems like it's never ending. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Why me? What have I done? Why does God hate me? Why won't he just take me now and just spare me? But there's a reason for it. Something on the other side of it. Something on the other side of all that pain. There is joy and there is freedom. And I promise, don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up.